Hello everyone, welcome back to Lone Oak Farms. Our faithful windrower swather is still dutifully laying down the swaths. I figured this time I'm up in the air a little bit. Maybe that'd be a little bit easier to watch the windrower as it does its work. Can also hear a little bit better. I kind of looked at my last recording, and that windrower, the noise of the mower is pretty loud, so but then again, maybe the noise of the windrower is preferable to the noise of me droning on and on. So he's now completed the outer rounds of the field. I think we set up course play for 6 rounds, and now he's going to do full on back and forth. And I believe I save the course later when we start combining this, namely tomorrow in game. Will have the combine with its belt pickup follow the same exact course that the windrower is doing, so he's able to pick them all up. Figured that'd be a little bit easier than doing all the driving myself. So anyway, it's going there. I was just starting to think of a number of other reminiscences of Lone Oak Farms and during the windrowing time period of year. And I think I've mentioned when I first started, we had these old John Deere 800 cabless windrowers, and they had a cutting table different from the one we see on the windrower here. I know I've explained that. It looked more like the header that goes on the combine had a standard cutting head with a sickle in there and a reel, and then it had a canvas belt for a draper belt, they called it, that would move these grass that you would just cut to the center and put it in a windrow, all nice, neat, and tidy, or kind of. And I was just thinking of some of the things, back then that would come to mind in terms of that. I think I've mentioned their gas machines. We had to refill them kind of at midnight. We also had to learn to do a little bit of repairs on them, and I'm not a real mechanically gifted person. I knew enough to somewhat adequately drive some of these machines, although I wasn't a very good operator either. I did the best I could. But occasionally at night, things would break, and you, as the operator, had to know what to do, or else your machine would be dead in the water. I know there's much larger farms, they had maybe a full-time mechanic on staff, including one that would come to the field, when you're in the middle of the night windrowing or whatever, and would be able to take care of these problems and whatnot. But we weren't. This was isn't a huge farm, so a lot of this we just had to do on our own. And my uncles are both gifted in the shop, able to tackle pretty much anything that breaks as to how to fix it as long as they have the tools and the parts. There's pretty much nothing that they couldn't do. But they were also out running windrowers, so if they had to come help fix something, it meant that their windrower would then be down for a little while also. So probably some of the most common things we would occasionally have to fix would be a broken sickle section. That's kind of the main operating unit on those old windrowers. And typically, I mean, they would work fine. They would cut the grass decent, but anytime we got into rocks, and it wouldn't take much of a rock, you ran the risk of hitting it with your sickle if it didn't bounce over it just right, and first thing damaging a section. And sometimes I gotta say, it really would wake you up. It isn't like, you'd be driving a certain speed and all of a sudden you'd come up short and, about fly over the front end of it or anything. It wouldn't stop the machine typically. But a lot of times when I mean wake up, you would see sparks flying and everything down there as, all of a sudden a sickle section formerly going back and forth, kind of in between some guards, where it would shear off the grass. Now all of a sudden it would be either bent, twisted, broken, and it'd be running into all sorts of metal, and it'd make a screeching sound, sparks would fly. And during the night, you may have slept all day, maybe you were adequately rested, maybe not, but when it's dark out, and what we're seeing here in game is would be early evening. It'll get much darker. It's pitch black out there. So your mind can kind of get lulled to sleep. Picture it kind of like driving a car late at night. You're on the interstate and you're following somebody else up ahead of you, their lights. And I think maybe we've all had the experience from time to time when all of a sudden those lights up there turn red, and you can tell they're stopping. And suddenly it's like, whoa, whoa, I better start paying attention here. I can't just be moving along. Well, it can kind of be like that in the dark as you run these machines. I'm not going to say you doze or that you fall asleep. It's just your mind kind of gels or whatever, and it can be easy not to pay as close attention as you maybe would if it was broad daylight or that kind of thing. So trust me, when your blade is broken and you hear the racket and you see the sparks, it wakes you up in a hurry. And then kind of some of the funny thing is even though you've turned that machine on and off 1,000 times, you know where the lever is to pull it out of gear. It can so disorient you that you forget all that. I have a memory of riding in a combine with my grandfather uh, once when I worked up there. I don't know why it was. I was just riding with him for a short bit, and he took in a wad into the combine and he plugged his header. Well, he was kind of lulled to sleep too, if you will, not literally sleeping, but you just don't expect in the middle of the day or in the middle you're working that all of a sudden your machine's having trouble. So his arms were flying all over the cab trying to figure out, what to turn off to get it to stop. And I remember reaching across him and just punching the button. It was in his 8820, punching the button that turned off the header, so it quit making all this racket. But that's something that can happen too. There was a lever we pulled on these 800s. It was all manual, getting it going and what have you. And so to turn it off, you had to pull the lever. But fortunately, breakdowns and that kind of thing didn't happen too often. Otherwise, if they did, we wouldn't get any work done. The other area, well, maybe there was two other areas. I'm thinking of those old machines. It seemed like by the time my cousins and I were driving them, they weren't, well, let's just say they had seen their better days. They had done a lot of work and were flat out tired. I don't know that they were always maintained the best or treated the best because they weren't the premium machines anymore. I think they were just being, oh, how shall we say it, depreciated out and used until they broke. Um, but another area they had trouble with is they tended to overheat. Um, I don't remember what the cause of that was. I just remember having to deal with it. And occasionally it'd get hot. You'd have to stop and let it cool off for a while. Could be it had something to do with having a gas engine in it versus diesel. I don't know. Um, I don't think there was trouble with the radiators. Maybe there was, but probably a more annoying problem was the drive chains underneath. It's in order to have those sticks independently move those wheels. You could literally, I believe, have one wheel going forwards and the other back. These would be the front wheels. Um, in order to do that, each one of them had their own independent drive chain, and those broke I don't know how many times. So much so that we started taking parts with us out into the field so that we could fix it on the fly if we had to. When if we lost a link, I think we had additional links we could put in. So I got a little bit adept at working on chains and how to put some of those back together. And there were other things. This is where a person learns things over time. And like I say, I'm not very mechanically gifted. But the concept of a key on a shaft. Well, these chains were turning sprockets down there that ran the front wheels, and within the wheels on the shaft around which they turned was a key. And of course, you had to have the key locked in there or the wheel would not turn. And maybe some people know what I'm talking about when I say a key. It's if you don't have the key in there, it's like this little bar of metal between the shaft and there's a groove in the shaft that you can push the key into, and then there's a groove on the tire or the wheel itself that the key fits into, and it's got to fit into both, so that therefore when the shaft turns, the wheel's going to turn, and so forth. Well, sometimes these keys, we were having trouble with them just popping out. So I remember one of my cousins, even in frustration, trying to weld the thing in there. He welded a cap over it, and I think at some point at night it popped the cap off and we still had trouble. But, if one of the keys came out when you have two independent wheels driving the front, well, now what you're left with is one wheel turns and the other doesn't. So the only thing you can do is kind of go in circles, which kind of defeats the purpose, of course. And some of it too, I think one of them had duals up front. So if you needed the duals to climb a hill, then you were kind of hamstrung. When one wheel turned, the other one didn't. And these are just some of the things I remember that we had to deal with these older machines. They were a little ticklish driving down the road at times too. Um, with those sprocket chain drives, they didn't, of course, like I say, I'm not the best driver, but a lot of times they were a little jittery, and I always got nervous when cars were on the road, because if it behaved in a way you weren't expecting, well, the last thing I wanted to do was to have to explain to the boss, just what happened, and in terms of hitting a car and some of those kinds of things. But good times, fun times. I really enjoyed driving them things. They don't have them anymore. Would love to drive another one in a heartbeat if I ever had an opportunity. And, I've never looked for a mod that was similar to the John Deere 800, that style of swather. I know I've seen windrower swathers that are more modern versions of John Deere, but I don't know that I've seen those old style ones. So maybe I'll write that down. I'm kind of curious to see if someone out there has worked on one, and maybe they exist. I just don't know. Put down JD 800 Swather mod. Who knows? Maybe it's out there and I just haven't ever, well, I don't know if I've ever looked, period. But yeah, occasionally you would hit those rocks and you would have to stop. And this is where you would try to drive them over to. We always took a pickup out there with us, and the pickup had lights in the back that shone pretty bright, would give you a little extra lighting to see. But remember, it's pitch black, and so all you have is the lights on the swather itself and whatever else you can find with a pickup, trying to sit down there under the header and hoping you don't have to pull out the whole sickle, but that you can fix it. And I think I've mentioned before, the earlier style were rivets, so we would all carry a chunk of steel with us that we could put under the sickle to kind of support it, if you will. And then we could beat on the top of it, if we were pushing a rivet through the sickle section to try to mushroom it over the sickle section up top to hold it. A lot of times had to pull off the guards to do it, and so there'd be a little bit of work to do. And then in later style, I showed some pictures in, was it yesterday's video or a couple videos ago, that showed some of the later machines. They were John Deere 2280s. There was a 3830. I don't know what they have up there now. It's still other John Deere machines. But those also had sickles in them, and uh, we we started using, I think, little bolts so we could just use a ratchet set to pull them on or off, um, to try to make it a little bit easier versus using those rivets. So, and oh no, we were good aimers with a hammer in the dark. We never hit our fingers or anything like that. Never said any bad words from it either. So, but I'll tell you, I mean, maybe it's some, as I think back, it's maybe some curiosity, the injuries we could get, like I just mentioned, you accidentally beat your finger or whatever and get it in between your hammer and a rivet head. Um, Probably the worst injury I ever had, and I got to think how to say this delicately. I think we were refueling the windrower the middle of the night. It was probably midnight, just a little after. I had it parked right beside the pickup truck, because we had a tank on the back of the pickup that had the fuel in it. So fueling it up, whatever, is sitting there, and like I just mentioned a little bit ago, the lights coming out of the back of the pickup. So if you are standing behind a pickup, the lights are in your eyes, right there. Then you have the swathers just to the right of you, and let's say you decide to go to the passenger side of the pickup to get something out of there, like your lunch. Well, that's what I did, I think, one night. And I forgot that that header was sitting right there, and the light coming from the pickup blinded me, and so I couldn't really see, but I didn't think there was anything there. It's like, well, but even though the swather was to one side, I forgot about the width of the header that was close to the truck. So I go walking through the air at a brisk clip, and I tell you what, I about bent over when I hit the edge of the header. And I'm a man, I'll just let you think a little bit where the header hit me exactly that caused me so much pain. And there was a particular pulley that ran, I think, maybe the header, the reel header on the reel. That's the part that hit me based on where it was sitting. And I got to tell you, I almost couldn't make it the rest of the night. I've mentioned the sticks that you pull back on, and every time I pulled back on those sticks, oh, look at that, I earned an achievement, in for the long haul. Oh, wow, I feel so achieved. But that was probably the worst injury I ever had, probably on the farm, was just walking briskly into the header of this old windrower and being bent over in my man parts, and then having to deal with that all night long every time I tried to, back up the windrower at each corner. So, but I kept at it. I will say I didn't quit, and I can't even remember if I told my uncles about it. So hopefully they don't ever listen to this and hear what happened. They'll probably just make fun of me, but that wouldn't be the first time they ever did that. But kind of sheepish to have to say that because I wasn't paying it close enough attention. But it's surprising where and how and when you can get nailed on the farm with an injury. All right, we're kind of pinching this field off over here, getting close. Time is continuing. Noise of the windrower is getting to be a little bit more. I don't know if that's helped that we can hear a little bit better just by not being in the thing. I'll maybe try to back up a little bit. This field in games seems a whole lot smaller than it does in real life. I know it's just the scaling of the map versus the buildings over here. Um, Trust me, it would take a lot longer, even with 3 windrowers working in it, than what this one has been able to do it. There's no way in real life you'd be able to do it in an hour, or whatever it's taken us so far. I'm trying to think of what other memories I've had. This one's just kind of weird, but I know for a while one of my uncles enjoyed smoking cigars, and he seemed to do it at night when he was windrowing. Maybe that helped keep him awake. So I have memories of, we'd pass one another every now and again in the field, and every time he passed by me, I would get a whiff sometimes of cigar smoke that would come out of his cab. I don't know why that stands out to me now, but it does. It's just one more memory. I think about this time too, when we had those old machines. I think, when did I get contact lenses? I think I was a sophomore in high school when I finally got something decent in my eyes so I could see. My vision had been deteriorating for several years running, and it was just abysmal. At school, I couldn't see the chalkboard or blackboard, when I'd be sitting in the chairs. And it was embarrassing sometimes, but in order to, get the teacher's notes, I'd sometimes have to literally go sit beside him or her and copy it straight off of the overhead projector where they were writing it, because I couldn't see it from where I was sitting in the class. So eventually it's kind of like ding ding ding, a bell went off. You can't see, you knucklehead. You need to go get your eyes checked. And I have horrible vision even to this day. I think it's, well, I can't even say what it is. It's 20. You know how 20/20 is like regular perfect vision? Well, I have something like 2400 or something. So, yeah, it's pretty bad. I don't know that it was bad back then, but the reason I bring it up here now is my freshman year, when I got out of school for the summer, I had no aid to vision. And so I would have ran one of these windrowers, and who knows what kind of a crummy job I did unwittingly just because I couldn't see very well. And I kind of remember it being a little blurry, so hopefully my driving improved my sophomore year, once I had better eyes in my head. But that was really silly. I kind of let that go for far too long. And it was such a night and day thing. I don't know if anybody's had that before with their eyes. Maybe you've done a better job at it than, what I've ever done. But I just remember, going to the doctor's office, and they were, figuring out what my vision needed to be, and when I picked up the contact lenses for the first time and some lady helped me put them in my eyes, I was just amazed at how well I could see. I practically felt naked sitting there. It's like, you mean other people can see me this well? And, here all this, the rest of this time, it's kind of like you just assume that if it's blurry to you, it's blurry to everybody else. And it wasn't even that I knew that it was blurry. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know, when you kind of get lulled to sleep, if you will, and all of a sudden it improves and you see how good it could be. It was just a really weird feeling. So, but hopefully everybody else has kept better tabs on their vision than what I ever did. That was quite a shocker to me to have that much improvement. How many more do we got to go here? Kind of hard to tell, but he's working away at it. Once we get done with this field here, I'll send him over to field 44, and we'll get that one cut. And I gotta say, some of these windrows, I'm trying to figure out if they are as big as what I think they should be. And I just wonder if they're just slightly undersized because the field hasn't been plowed. And if the field is plowed, it's going to bump the yield up. I'd have to study some of the literature on the game. I don't remember how much. Well, maybe I could check real quick. Maybe the instructions in here says use a plow or cultivator. Improving yield. Plowed fields yield 10% more output. Well, that'd probably be noticeable. All right. So, because these fields haven't been plowed, the windrowers or the windrows down there should technically be 10% bigger. So, the fact that they look slightly undersized is maybe normal based on the fact that it hasn't been plowed. It's kind of funny, we're up in the air and I can hear footsteps kind of on the ground. And all the birds are still singing. I'm not sure when the trigger happens that it's nighttime. There's certain birds that only come out at night, others that are during the day. I think I mentioned before I had a special file sent to me from Kim G that added a lot of birds that are native to the area where Lone Oak is. So it's pretty cool to get that file from him. This field here, by the way, is fairly flat. I mean, in real life, it's kind of a rolling hill field, if you will. It isn't totally flat. It's got a little bit of slope, but it's one of their flatter pieces of land, I guess I would say. So in terms of windrow in it, I mean, it's pretty easy peasy, if you will. Although in real life, we kind of we go around and around, kind of like I mentioned earlier. Uh, but they had some fields that could be quite challenging to cut. And kind of like I was mentioning with the 800s a little bit earlier, you know, especially if you had a key out of a wheel and the axle wouldn't turn, you know, and you needed that dual wheel to help you out going up a hill. Well, yeah, there's a lot of times you may just sit there and spin if the grass was wet and there was a very heavy dew. You know, sometimes the dew would be heavier than others, and if you're on a steep part of the hill, well, you could end up sliding a little bit, and sometimes part of the fun of doing the work was figuring out a way to navigate the hill so that you could try to get a clean windrow put in. I think if you went side to side on the hill, it was you didn't slip all that much. But going up or downhill, you definitely could slip a lot more. It needed some Velcro on your tires to kind of hold it in place. The combines had self-leveling, but of course none of the windrowers had self-leveling. There wasn't really a need. But there's some areas of the farm where it's steep enough you kind of wished you had self-leveling, you know, just for the operator comfort of it, if nothing else. We almost have this field done, and we'll be moving to another field. And it's steadily getting darker, I think, in here. It's trying to, getting towards night. It'd be 9 o'clock in game. But in the summer, this is what's kind of cool too. I know the farms have gotten bigger over time and all that, away from the smaller ones, so it must have been even more years ago. But you can just see it out in the hills. You could be out there windrowing, cutting away, and you can see your neighbor over there also cutting. He's doing the same thing you're doing. Multiple neighbors sometimes. You can just see them going away. I wouldn't say it's a community type thing, but it's just one of those things that you're out, you're in the same boat. It's you know, it's a type of friendship. Uh, Maybe even a brotherhood of farmers all kind of in the same boat, each trying to bring their crop in. And it was just neat to see. You could be out in quite a ways away from a paved road, working away in a field, kind of in an area where you don't just go there every day. And, you know, not very far away, there could be some other guy in a different field in a similar type machine doing the same thing you were. Um, so it made it seem less remote than it appeared. Hey, I think that's the last pass, isn't it? Maybe I'll hop down from here. How do I get down? There we go. Okay, yeah, even down here, it looks flatter up above. Yeah, this is probably similar to real life. This is about how much roll it would have in the field. But I'll maybe just hop in cab and take it over to him. Oh, that's louder. Almost done. Actually, though, I almost think he's going to be coming back. It's like there's like a pixel width. Yeah, he isn't totally done. You know what? We're going to say he's done. We'll make sure, yep, we have saved it. We'll get rid of this course. I'm going to drive over to the... Whoops, I can't even hardly drive, piece of... I should do it the way we did it in the field. We always tried to straddle a windrow, and then we would exit the field kind of down the corners. I don't know why we did it exactly that way, but we did. I mean, basically the idea was to avoid driving on the windrow as much as you could. Starts about here. I'm curious to see what my FPS is doing. Oh, good. That is so much better than what I was experiencing here the other night. So I'm tickled with that, even if it isn't as stellar as what you get on your computer. So I'm going to set up a similar course, just this time on field 44. I think we'll go 6 rounds. Oops. I guess I didn't run it, did I? Oh yeah, we gotta be out here. I think I have it set up for first waypoint. Let's get it going here. Gonna take it into the field and turn them loose. Yeah, I think definitely if I plow these fields, I'm going to try to work it a little closer to the house. So the field can be a little bit bigger and closer to what it is in real life. But otherwise, he's off and running, and I think, if I'm not mistaken on the time, I've already taken up another half an hour of your time, so I think what I'll do is terminate the episode here. Thank you for stopping by, for taking time to watch this. Hope you all are having a good day, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.